box. There we go.
Okay, and now it's sorted. That is great. Perfect. So, okay, mentor training. Yeah, so I think this is such a huge, amazing thing that you guys are doing in terms of helping students acclimated to college. And of course, there's study skills and techniques, but I think the big thing is just that professional relationship you have with your mentee and helping them navigate things. So we'll talk today about do's and don'ts of mentoring in general. Have a small group activity. And when we mean small, we can always here have some, so we can do some online work too, and kind of tag team this. Policies and procedures, of course. Study skills techniques. We'll talk about diversity. That's really important as well. We'll have some think pair shares or case scenarios to kind of discuss what makes a biology mentor a really great mentor in your mind. Kind of have our own creature that we create. And then the note card, which is activity. And of course, time for questions. Take a brief 5-minute break around 10 o'clock, just so you guys have a chance to get up and stretch. Let's go ahead and take a few minutes to write down your impressions. Do's and don'ts of mentoring. Just to write down what should a good mentor do, what should a good mentor not do. Try to stay with camera. Also, feel free to write a few things too in terms of in the midst of what we're experiencing with the team handling, any things that you think would be helpful for us to do. Okay, any thoughts? Let's start off with what are your thoughts about what would a good mentor do? So making someone feel validated. How would you make somebody feel validated? Would you say? Be supportive even if they're not always getting the right answer. Looking at the effort. All right.
Be approachable and attentive.
Approachable and attentive, right? I think that's a very good point too. Being approachable opens the door for communication because if someone's not very approachable, they may be afraid to ask questions. Being attentive can be really helpful because then, again, it opens up the path for communication. If somebody is in a conversation with another person, but they're circling the whole time, it's probably not very approachable. If they are kind of seated, giving them a lot of eye contact or paying, heads on, like listening to them, kind of repeating what they're saying, so that they're heard, some of that verbal communication, but some of the nonverbal communication as well can be important. Yeah, good point.
for one line, be proactive in your mentees your study. So just like being attentive and like what they need, what they need for studying.
So kind of looking at maybe some of the things that we're doing really well, but maybe also some blind spots that you can help out with. Is that kind of what you're
Yeah,
doing?
that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Okay. Awesome, folks. Here in Zoom, what are some do's and don'ts of mentoring? Let's start off with the do's. What do you think?
So I have really bad audio, so I'm not sure if these have already been said. But for me, I thought that it was really important to create a positive and inclusive environment and always encourage your mentees.
So be encouraging, positive, inclusive environment. Yes, that's a very good point.
I would say like just to communicate with them really well so that they like know what's going on at all times, like try to communicate the best you can.
Okay, maybe then keeping them posted of things that are happening within the department or just being available to answer questions as needed. What about the don'ts? What do you think about the don'ts? I guess we'll turn back here to our live in-person audience. What are some don'ts? Yes.
Don't fall down. Don't treat them.
Right, because if they're feeling like they're being judged in any sort of way, that kind of closes down the communication. Other don'ts.
a lot of mine I read down real quick. So, also kind of, I just also you don't like, of course, you kind of like exclude your mentees. So, obviously, if say 4 mentees are getting material for one and struggling to understand it, don't exclude that person in that situation. Make sure they might need more time, but make sure they understand it.
So making sure they have kind of understanding
Yes.
of something, the understanding a concept. Quick thoughts.
I know last year, but after Barry told me that we got the funding a couple times, and or don't solely rely on online based learning, because I mean we are starting in person fall.
Yeah, you're right.
It's gonna be really scary for a lot of people. I mean, it's still kind of scary to me, but
Sure.
just that online is not all.
Okay. So did you hear that too? So finding some creative ways, not just in terms of online learning, but also in-person learning, or just kind of navigating the pandemic and working with people kind of presented in terms of the circumstances. Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of don'ts for y'all, so we have some ideas as to what would be some don'ts of mentoring.
For me, I thought it's important not to try to act superior or put your mentee below you.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Even if they get the wrong answer, they're working hard, they're trying to get towards the right answer. So if we make them feel empowered and not judged, then other thoughts.
Well, I'll just add one thing, which is that I think it's important not to get completely sucked into just answering questions about material like a tutor, but rather to keep the bigger picture in mind. Remember that mentors are here for the bigger picture to help navigate the course and to help navigate college life, and not just to talk about cellular respiration.
Wow, that's a great point too, right? Yes, building that connection. It's amazing too. I know Mr. Roberts and I will have times where we'll have students contact us that were in our classes, and then it could be the next semester, it could be some cases 8 years after, when people had to take a break and come back to school. They're like, hey, you helped me out before. And I love that fact that people feel comfortable talking to us. That's the key thing. If they feel comfortable talking to you, then you can find out things like, okay, maybe they are understanding their classes, but they're not engaged in the classes because they need help with shelter or other big things that are happening. So good answers. Okay, great. Naturals of this. Okay. All right, so how does one be a great mentor? Do you as faculty members have some suggestions or things that would be important for us to keep in mind?
I think that Dr. Ho's going to just point out one of the big ones is remember that you're not just teaching biology, right? You're there so that if something else happens, you can help them navigate online, on campus, in class. And really, that was an important one. I think last year, one of the big ones that brought up was time management, managing your time with your mentors, helping them prepare a schedule and helping yourself prepare your own schedule. So that would be mine.
That's a good point. So like taking a holistic approach, again, time management, also helping of course with biology, but keeping the big picture of how to help them navigate college. Yeah, I think that's a good point, because it all kind of comes together. Yeah. Okay. So good points all around for sure. Now, some things that are helpful, of course, too, are to think about what is the nature of this professional relationship. So, of course, you know, being kind of experienced at this whole biology component makes it very helpful for your mentee because you have a lot of answers they may not have about biology. But in terms of the actual things like, what if you have someone, like, do you text your mentee, do you email them, do you call them, what are those hours that have been set up? We use like Google Voice here to reach out to students, but policies and procedures for biology could be very specific. So is there anything in terms of policies and procedures, the nature of this mentoring relationship that you think would be helpful for mentees to consider and to know?
So I think first, just as a general rule, which you guys probably remember in the application, is that you'll meet with your mentees once a week. And you're going to be the one who says how that works. I think what Colin has brought up is interesting. New versus person, and that's going to be set by you. We will also then have a meeting where you meet with us and the other mentors at least once a week. So in general, that is our structure. We have not yet decided. We're going to have to ask you guys what works best for you and when. We haven't decided that these who are in person just because we're a little behind on stuff and organized this semester. But that will be coming up in the next week. Jason, is there anything I'm forgetting for our policies, procedures, things like that?
I don't think so, but if Rebecca could hear that well, I think it would be good for her to repeat it because the audio quality for us on Zoom here is pretty low, and it's better when Rebecca is speaking right near the microphone.
Okay, so basically, good points. I'll kind of repeat what we said. So Dr. Smith said, meetings once a week with you all as faculty members is an expectation, as well as meeting with mentees once a week. And in terms of trying to figure out the nature of that relationship in terms of Zoom versus in person, is still pending, but will be figured out soon. Yeah. So that is true. And is there anything you wanted to add to that, Dr. H?
Nope, that sounds about right. Just that, you know, the mentors are responsible for setting up a time to meet with their mentees each week. And that can be one of the more challenging aspects because your mentees might have different schedules and the same time might not always work for all of them. And we can help you navigate that, but that's going to be, you know, something that will be one of your challenges is finding that ideal time. And you might need to explore different options for the first few weeks to find out what works best.
And in terms of things like texting, do they text each other? Is that cool? Or phone calls, or what is the preferred method of communication?
Yeah, good question. So what I think the mentors should speak to this a little bit who are here from last year, but my impression is that they found success with different students with different methods. So sometimes it was using the GroupMe, which will set up, using a GroupMe to set up an easy group chat with the mentors, but sometimes a direct text message to their phone was more effective in getting someone's attention who hasn't been participating. And email, I think, was not super effective, but I think using a GroupMe as a default and then going with direct text messages sometimes, that was my impression, but I think that's a good question for our experienced mentors to answer also.
So I think for my group, what we found successful in our group, we had my group, is we first started off, we started off really, like we never had any problems at all. Here's my group, we sent them email them all over the grouping, and then I'll be all in one grouping, and then like real do probably 90% of everything we did communication on grouping, and then we did even the our mentor, we did give them our number, but we told them that it was like for emergency, emergency. Let's say it was like the, I don't know, 8 p.m. and next day I had an emergency, like, oh, it wasn't anybody, and like they could text us, but we told them how it was for emergency purposes, and it's like use that sparingly. But most of the time, our mentees actually just would group me and just find group me, and they actually kind of like group me a lot. So I think, at least in my group, then group is like the successful thing. It worked.
That's great. So the group meeting is super helpful. So that would be maybe a recommendation of students that speak with their mentors, but also with each other. They can kind of help each other to troubleshoot. And then texting maybe on an emergency type basis, but the primary method being.
So that's my good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Other suggestions? It's helpful for people who've been through this experience. But feel free to share your wisdom. It's always good to know. Any folks on Zoom that are returning that wanted to share? Okay.
Can I have one thing?
Yeah.
Sure. I also want to test, so I need to see if people with my.
Okay, great.
Okay, so, no, it's,
Okay, that's not a good idea.
all right, no.
Okay, so one thing I want to point out is that we are, in our weekly meetings where the mentors all get together, that's where we do a lot of the troubleshooting of how can I help my students do time management, and how can I, this problem came up and I don't know where to send resources to. So we'll also have a group meeting for our, and all of us as the mentors and Dr. Brooks and that we can all communicate to the best way we can. And I've said that we've used grouping already. Like titled it Biology Mentors 2021, you should be able to search for it and join it. That is, I think that kind of alleviates some of the stress of what am I supposed to be doing with these students when I work with them, especially initially. So we'll do that on kind of a weekly basis.
That's great. Okay, so Dr. Camila said too, there would be a group meeting for mentors, and that way you all can communicate easily and troubleshoot things together, as leaders. Good to know. Perfect. Okay. So let's see. We are, that's great. Policies, procedures. All right. We always like to just talk about policies, procedures, because I know sometimes we have students that are mandated to take our classes, and they get, for the most part, they're super nice. We get a couple that are, pretty upset about it, and so we don't give out our personal numbers just because they not want to be used to. So, but totally different scenario here. So I think that's great to consider. So Jeremy will talk now about total study skills techniques that we can consider.
The first one, if you look at your package, which we'll make sure that y'all have versions of this to give everybody, so I can know you all PDFs. So if you look at the packet under the first one, it's called the index card, not for the index card that you're going to use now, but for the index cards in general. What you want to do, basically, how we use index cards is we do word on one side and we would write a definition, right? We're going to go a little deeper than that. We're going to start adding an application and concept to the index cards to give us depth, to give us an example, to give us a process of how things actually work. Instead of just, here's a definition, that's all I know. No. Y'all take any biology test, you know, it's a little bit deeper than that, right? You can't just say, here's a definition, here's a word, it all comes together. You have to include, here's how it works in this process, here's what it means, here's more detail about it. So if you read through this, it gives you some information on how to do a fact, which is your basic definition, how to do application and concept. Can you hear me online too? Good. Amy? Okay. We're there to get quiz again. Go there. So, with application and concept, just think of what are some examples of this? Go back to your book, go back to your lecture notes. The teacher said in class, oh, that's kind of important. They talked about a figure. Let's go look at that figure in the textbook. Write that figure down for your other part, include it with your information. So that's how you can get past just word definition. Go big with it. Okay? The next one is one that we love doing. We love reading the textbook. So S24R helps you with reading. It breaks it down into chunks. Think about how you eat. We break things into chunks, right? Cut it up. But we're supposed to cut it up. With this S24R, you look at pictures, titles, key terms, vocabulary, questions. Questions you should be asking yourself, when I'm done reading this, what do I just read? Was it about somebody in particular? Who, what, when, where, how, why, which? Some of the basic journalism questions you would ask as you're writing a story. Which for you, for biology, you got to know, how does this work in the process? Where does it begin? Where does it end? What goes on in the middle? How does DNA work? How does RNA work? How does our digestive system work? So if you're reading your book, which we know textbooks in general, they're expensive, and there's a lot of text, right? So when you're going through reading the material in your textbook, break it down paragraph by paragraph. So you're breaking it into chunks. Or go section by section, whichever one is easier for you. Then what you do is you write a sentence, or two or three, based on that material. If there were key terms in that, include those key terms. If it was talking about the process, draw it out on paper. See how things connect the dots. SP4R is supposed to take the material from this to condense it down to this. So you may have 10 paragraphs, so at the end you have 10 sentences. You have 10 sections of the book. When you break it down, you've got maybe 20 paragraphs instead of 50 or 70 paragraphs that are written for a specific chapter. Does that make sense? Folks online, does that make sense? Could y'all hear me? Are we good? Are you ready for your quiz? Okay. I don't think that was a second one. Rebecca, do you want to do it?
Sure. Can I show you too? Some cool resources online if you want to show students. I mean, you guys have done a bunch of study skills, I think, over time, but some stuff, you know, I didn't learn about the SP4R until I got this job and I teach it. But I like it, the idea of sitting down and turning notes into other notes or making a product every time the student sits down and study, because I think especially a freshman, it's tough to know, you know, whatever works in high school may not work now in college, especially when you're in classes that are really challenging. And so this is kind of a framework to be able to tell students, okay, here's some things that you can consider doing. So I personally, there's multiple ways to spin the same cap. You can generate an odd setting, but nonetheless, applicable to this kind of situation. Concept maps are things that you can use in multiple different ways. You can use them in presentations to make presentations look fancy. You can use a concept map to self-test. So if you think about, let's say you're watching a favorite TV show, trying to remember all of the characters and plot of the TV show, you can map that out and use it. It's a little bit more complicated, of course, when you're taking classes, but nonetheless, the next time you're in, watching a TV show, you can give it a shot and see how all these different characters relate to one another. And concept mapping is a lot about relationships, right? How do things relate to one another? So Ole Miss has a lot of different aspects to it, right? Students can focus on academics, they can focus on the athletic side of things, going to football games, having fun and growth. And within academics, there's multiple majors and minors for students to choose from, institutes and centers that people can be a part of, that their majors may coincide with. Lots of different types of faculty. And then, of course, there's networking, getting to know people while you're here on campus, developing that social capital. And then, of course, history of Ole Miss. We've been a liberal arts institution. We teach history at EBH 215. Lots of different things. I like concept mapping the best, but you maybe like the SQ4R or the Cornell map. The thing with studying is it's all about memory and retention, right? How do you most easily remember something? And that can be tricky when you've got a lot of stuff to remember. So I used concept mapping. When I was practicing my dissertation defense, I just took out a piece of paper and tried to map out all the different things to my dissertation, and it was helpful for memory and retention that way. But you can organize your notes that way. But I think concept mapping is pretty cool. That's my personal favorite. Cornell note taking. So this is very simple in that, again, it's all about memory retention. Notes don't have to be pretty or fancy, but they do need to be thorough. There needs to be some method of taking those notes and committing them to memory in some way, shape, or form. So with the Cornell note, you can organize it. Organize things here on the right-hand side of the page. Here. And then sometimes what I do is I just get down as much as I can for each bit of information about your presentation. And then I organize it later, but you can also organize these as you go if you'd like. Basically, taking your notes and then organizing your notes according to questions or ideas. So in EBT 101, we talk about study skills. This is study skills one class. As you can imagine, if you talk only about study skills for people, we'll have lots of people falling asleep and drooling and not really excited about it. So we have used that with criminal justice and true crime and talk about innocence projects and Stephen Avery making a murder. I don't know if you've seen that on Netflix. It's pretty interesting. So we'll talk about the various facts of the case and then organize it by the characters or the actual people who have been living this. This is a real documentary. And then you summarize your notes at the bottom. That helps with memory and retention also. You can use this kind of as a study guide in that if you flip this part of the book, so you're only looking at this, then you kind of like note cards do, where you try to commit notes to memory. And so, yeah, so that's one way of going through things too. You can also do multiple things, right? Like if you're in class, it's the way to organize your notes. You can actually buy pads of paper that are in the Cornell note-taking format. And you can also then put these aside and then try to remember afterwards, concept map it out all the different characters. Who's Stephen Avery? Why do you think he may be guilty or not guilty? Why was he arrested? And what is he, on trial for? All those different scenarios. That's some things there. I think I'm going to show you too. Hopefully I don't mess this up. This is a great website I refer people to all the time. Okay. You all see this okay on Zoom? Is this, what does that look like on your screen?
You can see it good.
You can see, so it says college info geek? Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay. There's no, I probably watched it, but that's right there. I still have time to watch it. Have you guys heard of college info geek before? This guy is really interesting. And he makes something that's very important, very fascinating. So I'll watch his stuff and get some good ideas. But everything under the sun, like if you have a student who's struggling in this area and you've tried helping them out and giving them feedback, this is a way to engage them too. So if you are, want to give them some additional resources, let's say they have a lot of different things that you feel like they can work on. It's okay to assign homework, right? Video over, in between meetings and let me know what you think about it. So, for example, studying more effectively, be more productive, starting a career, studying and learning. I'm gonna have to look up what the Feynman technique is. Have you heard of this? Okay, see, you know a lot of techniques, but there's always lots more stuff that goes out there. It's flashcards, how to remember more, how to improve your memory, how to take better notes, how to make studying fun, how to study for any test or exam, how to improve your grades on multiple choice tests, how to create a study schedule for final exams, developing confidence, overcoming test anxiety. Another thing too that's really important with mentoring, right? Sometimes people make mistakes. They don't do as well as they want to. And how do we help them bounce back from that? How do we not feel like a failure to make mistakes? And of course, there's times where someone's not engaging in something. That's a good conversation too. What is it that's keeping somebody from engaging in the process? Motivating someone to study. So I'll give you just a brief couple-minute overview of how to deal with it. Is there anything in particular you think would be interesting in these videos? We have multiple choice tests. Yeah, let's see this.
When it comes to taking multiple choice tests, there's this common piece of advice that often gets thrown around. When always choose C, right? What I'm for you to be. This advice comes from everywhere. If you heard it from your dad, your teacher, or your grandma, I'm pretty sure that I heard it from my eighth grade history class named Jimmy, but as didn't say, always independently verify your testing to my eighth graders named Jimmy. And two words never happen. Useful advice that you use. I've got 5 main strategies to go through, as well as 1 secret weapon of sorts. So let's just get started. First off, when the test paper is loaded at your desk, don't start immediately going over the questions. Instead, take a few minutes to go through and skim the test and just get a general overview of the questions. Now, as you're doing this, you can answer any questions that is literally easier to be literally confident in. But another thing you're doing by doing this whole skim once over the test before you actually start in earnest is you're priming your brain with some of the questions in detail on the test as a whole. This can be really, really useful for a couple of different reasons. One, you prime your brain to start thinking about some of the harder questions and get that in a minute. Number 2, sometimes multiple choice tests will have questions that hold details and hints, sometimes outright answers to other questions on the test. For example, a question which presidents have lost the 4 days or 10 days of warning in France. Now, as you go over the answers, you will pick one of them that, but the other ones, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, George Washington, you don't know which of the 3 is the correct answer. So if you skip it, you go on to the best later, you come across a question like true or false. Even though Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were bitter political rivals during the beginning of their careers, they eventually regained their friendship and kept it until both their deaths in 1826. Now, that question just established that Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died in 1826, and say that you knew from some other source that Napoleon himself had died in 1821. If you knew that, then that question answers the previous question, because both Thomas Jefferson and John Adams are not possible answers. Or it's Washington. These kind of details of questions are always going to come up in your tests, and in case you probably shouldn't waste a whole ton of your test without digging around.
The second technique on my list is the one focused on numbers called the hard start jump to easy technique. This is a technique where basically you jump into a difficult problem and you spend a couple of minutes thinking deeply about it. But if you can't get the answer to that problem, you move on. Now, this is something your teachers have probably told you in the past just to save time on your test, but there's another benefit that I have told you about. If you spend some time thinking about a hard problem, you're engaging your brain's focus mode. I know this focus is diffuse dichotomy is something I talk about a lot in videos, but it's really, really important. So by using focus mode, you are concentrating on the problem and using your conscious resources to try to solve. But once you jump into a different problem, your subconscious resources, distributed parts of your brain, work on that difficult problem in the background. And then when you go back to the problem a little bit later, you probably have a better chance to answer. Oh, and my apologies to Dr. Oakley, but we have got to get a thing that's hard start jump to easy technique. So I'm going to go ahead and the entire technique. It's something that one does out of the crash work where you spend some time riding the bus and then you switch over to avoid these tigers and go back and forth. So then please make sure you each have choice. This is really, really important because multiple choice questions can be tricky, and because they have a limited number of answers, and the answers are just written out for you, it can be really tempting to simply skim the question very quickly and go to the answer that's most familiar. But that's just pretty sneaky to write these kinds of questions, so you need to watch out for a few things that can trip you up. For example, some of the questions that are examined is not X, Y, Z. It can be really easy to think of see that word not if you want to really fast to see questions. Other questions might actually have one correct answer, and out there we find the answer that is most correct. And of course, again, there are also all sorts of questions that have all the plenty of other potential answers. And I'm not too proud to admit that in several classes for my college career, I took tests very quickly and began to see these types of answers on a few questions, which I of course got wrong. Different before is a tactic I found personally useful all throughout high school and college. It's to double check your answers as you end each page of the test instead of just waiting to do it all again. The reason this is so useful is that once you get to the end of the page of your test, you probably only have 5 or 10 questions to go over. And because you have so few, you're probably not going to rush or continue at a number of questions back to back. That's going to decrease the likelihood that you skip over a mistake or something that just should regularly stick out. And then increase your scores. Now, this is not a replacement for your good ones over once you finish. I definitely think you should budget time at the outset of the test to do that. But by adding this technique into your test taking arsenal, you can increase your scores even more. All right, let's move on to tip number 5. So if you come across a question that you can't get the answer to, or maybe you feel like the answer from the tip of your tongue, but you just can't quite get it, try to envision yourself which you learned that piece of information. Classroom, maybe your own study spot, but either way, science has shown that you can envision the area where you learn something, it activates something called context memory. Basically, humans are more able to remember things within the context or location in which they learn them. But research on 1984 showed that if people simply envision the place in which they learn something, they can channel some of that ability, not physically in that room. Now, if even that doesn't work, maybe you come across a question you just absolutely have no clue what the answer is, you've never seen it before, you just can't make any decisions whatsoever, well, it's time to break up that secret weapon. So remember our friend Jimmy gave us both nice, I doubt it's C. Yeah, he was wrong. But that's okay, because instead of following some rule or just randomly guessing, you actually use statistics to exploit the way in which human beings typically write multiple choice tests. And that's because, as the other really some of that is both operating scissors, humans are pretty bad at creating actual random distributions of answers. So previous research tells us that there were 100 multiple choice tests from all sorts of different sources. Schools, colleges, driver's exams, online quizzes, you name it, you found it. And that took over 2,400 questions. What we learned from the statistical analysis on all those questions is pretty surprising. First of all, we did discover biases for individual answers, but those biases changed based on the answers were available on the question. For 3 answer questions, A, B, C, there was no bias. And for 4 answer questions, bias turned out to be B, not C. So it was very statistically small at 20% versus 7.5%. And then we look at 5 answer questions, A through B, it was actually E that was the answer, and C was the least common answer. Those findings are just as perfect, and personally, I find them less interesting than all the others to discover. Looking back at true false questions, there's a definite bias towards true two answers to be correct. So 56% true is the correct answer, and 44% of the time is false the correct answer. Even more interesting and potentially useful to you is the fact that a question has a higher than average likelihood of not having the same answer as the question before. So if you have one question on the test where you knew the answer to C, exactly what you should have, and then you have the next question and you stop, or have C or D, then it's likely that D is the answer, not C. And perhaps the most astounding either all the above or none of the above answer doesn't, that answer is correct 52% of the time. It means that if you're stuck on a question and you can't narrow it down, that answer is your best bet. Now, even though I have found all these findings as secret weapon source, I do want to emphasize that you should only use them when you're completely at a loss and have to shop. You should use every other technique in the books to get things down, to give yourself some space, to use that time technique, because at the end of the day, all you're doing is displaying the way that people write texts. You're not actually learning, you're not actually using people faculties to work with the actual information in front of them. Anyway, beyond the tips in this video, the most important aspect of success of any multiple choice test for any kind of test at all is preparation. And you will learn to prepare for your tests more effectively after you put together a resource called the Ultimate Guide to Acing Your Final Exams. It collects everything that I've ever made, the abilities that comes with the balancing of videos, for specific tips, I'm not going to pick out, you can put on the card, it's pretty quick, or in the description down below. Beyond that, to enjoy this video, you can like this.
So, as you can see, and most of his videos are not shorter, but you can email those out. I like to watch them just to kind of see what's out there because I'm doing stuff all the time. So yeah, it's a relatively good resource for sure. I mean, I didn't know the Cornell loan, I didn't know that person yes before, right? You see what's out there and what's being used and stuff like that. So, let's see, any questions before we take a brief 3-4 minute break? Awesome. Well, we'll take a real quick break. Feel free to get up and stretch if you want. And we'll come back like 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Really important question, we should.
It's, yeah, I'm not surprised. Know what how many answers you need because you're spending so much time trying to make wrong answers that.
And that's all when he said, you know, like 3 each, there, I was like, oh, man, it's not a problem.
They have this technique called multiple true false, where you make a bunch of statements and you have to pick which one is true. And that's actually much more effective. Look at this guy's website. Really interesting.
And all the policies are supposed to be like, okay, so, well, now that I know this, I'll do the exact opposite.
You know, it's interesting. I think actually looking at his website, it's a single perspective, and it might be interesting for us as a group, even just to make our own tips for freshman year.
Oh, yeah,
And I think we
definitely.
talked about this last year. Like, giving people this, what everything you need to learn your freshman year, that may not, rather than just from one person's perspective. Have a whole group.
So that's what we did, especially like, when Dr. Bumble said, Dr. Bumble was like, complete like, different transitions, I don't take a different class, I like do the class, like, I remember like, we thought before, I was like, you don't read your book, you will fail. And I said, you will fail, and they're like, no, it was the days where they're like, half of them were like, yeah, we started reading, and I was like, okay, you don't know, I don't know, and I was like, really, what is it? Okay, not, take the test, you know, find out. Also, the test, not single one, they're like, not single one, they're like, all things.
The interesting thing to think about, like, I'm trying to figure out. These guys have not had the standard 160. They didn't have the first half, on the second. And they have most of Dr. Jackson, and most of Dr. Newman. Yeah, they haven't even seen much at all. They haven't seen much at all. So I'm trying to think of, when we have a first meeting. what's gonna be like for the freshmen, their mentors.
Can we do it? Can you go on?
Well, I'm actually, so one, I will probably, I'll leave it open for you to decide if you want to go see a lecture hall, well, and you guys are always welcome to committees, you know, lectures are running in person. And just sit here, I don't know what your schedules are, but there's non-public.
Especially when the topics we get like for French meals, at least for me and Deidre, our business was Southern restoration was always the hardest topic, like, at least for like, we basically took it for our class, all the people, all the tests, all the tests that the majority of people did careful on, and that was the second semester test was always, because and then the bubbles, it was the third test. I know the topics are really hard, and we need like fresh on, there's only topic we need to not just give people fresh, like maybe help ones, so like it's very hard. We actually thought how good lecture. I watched that all lecture that week, and then like doing different ideas because there were some topics. Those topics we didn't really even like studying and so that, but there were some topics like illustration was a big one that we gave a lot of biology, and like there were another B's class and by two this last semester it was the neurology class in general, like the nervous system. Like you all want to go on lectures because they're the topics that we usually have more than just a lecture, even this
Some even more general than these guys.
Yeah.
So like this is for mentoring. It's going to.
Big combination of.
I think that there's just gonna have to be a conversation. Because it's very different. Just thinking about the way he was talking about multiple choice tests, a couple things that he said on his website. Yeah.
If we're going to generate the order on.
Randomly shuffle the choices.
Yeah, because it was like weird, all the B.
We tried to get it, well, some of them we did shuffle, some of them we didn't, and I had to do it for every individual question, and sometimes I had patience.
And for ones that was like, you're looking at something that's like a little bit, you're choosing A, B, C, or D, you have to say where C should be, then all around.
Yeah, I know, that's what we have. Like you have about 10 to 12 per page, right? 10 to 12.
Depends on who you get the test, and Dr. Jackson likes to have a giant more than but yeah, this might be something that might have to test that you guys got and give them to you guys, so you can see.
We pulled out like our final exams and like.
When you think about studying hours.
Oh, I know.
You should have, when you get to Blackboard, and you guys be trying to go last semester.
Is there any like exams usually use like 5 years and 4 years ago, that doesn't matter. What?
Well, there is we didn't tell you the critical test, that's the case.
That being good enough to show it's not like affecting, it shows them also the mentees, it's not like, giving them details about how, it's not making them, that's showing the exam kind of deal.
Okay, so we're discussing right now the fact that you mentors, never been in a classroom. They've never taken a written test before.
Oh, crap.
They're gonna have some challenges that are different. Different kind of different strategy, right? So, yeah, I think it's fascinating. So you guys, the students are gonna say it was easy. It's gonna say it, doesn't matter, because you guys your books open. And I think for you guys, that means you're gonna have to come up with ways to figure out how to be done. Most still have those skills, you don't know it, but you're gonna have to be figuring out how to do that. I think that's something we're gonna have to talk about right away. As soon as we start having a subject.
So why don't we shift gears a little bit? Y'all have Zoom on your phones. Each person can go in the consult room, and then we can go back to our offices, and we can actually discuss this with everybody on Zoom. Yeah.
Try that. Use Zoom link.
Yeah, I only sent out a few requested and I
Yeah. So I mean, that's gonna be an issue, like, instead of talking about some of this stuff.
I would like to.
It's stuff that you can actually do.
I would like to actually make sure we do the diversity section on it, because one thing that's interesting about that guy's website, I like it, but I read his, like, fancy introduction here, and it's very white centric.
Right.
He says things like, don't bother getting a job. And then you're like, oh,
That doesn't really work.
right, so some of his stuff is interesting, and it makes me think maybe we should use, I was thinking that we should try to collect our own tips.
Yeah.
That's such a better for us.
Yeah.
Like that, we could use his website, not to destroy his website, but keep, report out what frustrating.
Right.
Sure, I would like to, yeah, I would like to.
Yeah.
And maybe that we could break out.
Yeah. Better doing the case studies.
We'll talk about.
That is a big case study for you.
It's totally gonna be, and the good thing is that then we switch to remote, which I suspect after, we're academy.
Yeah.
We may end up switching back to that. You guys will feel probably a little more comfortable in the scenario. So yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Okay, so. I don't even know where we're going to say. It's right here on camera. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick pivot. Technology is not like the best right now. What we're gonna do is we're all gonna get on our own Zoom link, and then we're gonna touch base about what the mentors have encountered this past year that could be really helpful. We're gonna talk about diversity, of course, still. Instead of the case study questions we're gonna ask, we're gonna go ahead and just talk easily now since we're all on Zoom. Just give us about 2 or 3 minutes to get situated, and then we will see you in a second.
Y'all can pick any of these closed rooms throughout the entire building, just get them, close the door, take the comfy chair.
I'm just worried here, you know, when you know.
Yeah.
They're all comfy chairs, they just. whichever one you want.
We just leave this thing on, I guess, Jeremy?
Yeah, and then I'll close this door and then I'm just gonna go.
I think you can make it easier, better.
Yeah, so
Do
there's
that.
two.
Just have everything on Zoom, but if you want to do it in person, that's it.
I would rather, I think, to be in person. Yes, I think we can with each other.
Okay, yeah.
And then if we split up like this again, it's a nice time for, we have an idea of what we're going to do. So I guess I have to leave too because, you know, that's what I'm here, right?
Yeah.
We have,
We got
I love it. That's how few people have really.
I know.
To just. Place. Like getting a new biologist. Oh, yeah.
Hey. Love that. If you want to get into this room.
Hi, everybody.
Wow, that's so nice to hear a clear voice.
Okay.
Uh-oh, could you hear me?
No, I had everything on mute because of all the disaster of me trying to set it up earlier.
I was just saying it's beautiful to hear someone's clear voice.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. The technology is so much fun.
Okay.
So what are the rules? Are we allowed to be unmasked when we're in a room by ourselves or in our
Yes.
offices?
Yes, you can. Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I like to be able to wear my glasses. That's really what's been killing me.
Mine just go straight fog and I'm like, I can't see.
I had to buy a bunch of these because I kept losing my glasses, right? I'd take them off and I didn't know if I was leaving them in random places like the supermarket. And
Right.
I guess we can all unmute, right? I
Mhm.
mean, this is a small enough group.
Okay. So Rebecca will be joining us. It's still recording in the other room, so we're good.
Jason, you really got to come over here. It's super nice.
I bet.
It's really just like Shoemaker.
I doubt that. Are the walls covered with mold?
No, there aren't. It's really, and yeah, it's just like there are tables and rooms and everything seems clean.
Yeah.
It's like,
Wow.
no, it's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
I assumed that there were rooms like that on campus, buildings like that, but it's easy to forget.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super nice. Everything's like really well labeled too, except the bathrooms, of course, which is like an Ole Miss thing. They label where every room is except the bathrooms.
I guess that's like a training exercise.
How many steps does it take to get to the bathroom?
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure. Is this Lindsay? Are you talking?
Oh, this is Michelle.
Oh, hi, Michelle.
Hi. So I don't know if you stated this or not, but when we meet, like
Yeah.
mentees, do we meet them in person or on Zoom?
So we are, I would say you can be flexible with that. One of the suggestions that Colin brought up earlier on is that doing both is probably a good idea, not just one, but.
Okay.
Danny, are you not able to get into Zoom?
My Wi-Fi is getting really stupid, so I'm just saying.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay.
What do I'm curious what the experienced mentors have to say about that question that Michelle just asked. What was your experience last year with the success of in-person versus Zoom meetings?
I know what my group did was we kind of did the policies because we knew it'd be much easier. Like if of course we had to do in person and Zoom, like have both go at the same time, it'd be fine. It would just been much easier for us if we had like either in person or on Zoom. Like it would be much easier, kind of like, you know, we're focusing on one kind of thing. So we basically just asked all the mentees and we said, you know, we are fine doing in person if y'all want to do in person, but like if one person was going Zoom, we're all doing Zoom. And I didn't say it, but it was like, you know, we said if you want to do in person, and like so we just kind of asked them individually what they want to do. But like one person said Zoom, then we were all going Zoom. Like we weren't going like that's what we kind of did. We found a lot of none of our mentees had any problems with being in person. So that's all of them wanted to be in person. But it might be different this semester. So you know, we might get a mixed review. But I know if I do the way I did last semester, if I have mentees saying they want to do in person, then I'm probably going to do all Zoom. That way it's easier to one thing to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Eden, what was your experience last year? Did you feel like one worked better than the other?
So in the beginning,
we had our meetings in person, which was really nice. But then throughout the semester, people would be going home or they said they were feeling sick. So we ended up switching it over to Zoom. And although both were effective at mentoring, essentially, I found that in person was just a lot more fun because we were able to interact more. While on Zoom, I felt like people's attention spans were shorter and they just weren't really getting much out of it. So I definitely preferred in person. And if I had the opportunity to do in person this semester, I think I would definitely choose that over Zoom.
Oh, Dr. Hooksma, one thing that I will say that was a really, really big difference going off what Ian said was when we did in person, of course, if like people were sick or something like that, then we did all Zoom. But one thing we noticed that was a really, really big concern was like in person, everybody was super attentive. But whenever we went to on Zoom, there'd always be at least half the mentees getting on their phones or getting on, like being distracted by something. And it would be like, it caused like a lot of time to be lost because, it'd be like, probably a fourth of the time be spent just like saying, hey, please get off your phone, or hey, if you're being distracted, please like focus. Like don't get or like, just so I will say, you said there was a huge problem of like people getting distracted on Zoom versus in person.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say if there are other questions.
Yeah. So we've heard from the mentors. What about the ones that were mentees last semester? What did y'all think about the difference between in person or Zoom? Did you have any preference or anything like that?
So my mentor actually didn't do any in person. It was all on Zoom. And as the year went on, less and less people showed up to the Zooms to where eventually at the end of the year, it was like just me showing up. So I think in person would kind of resolve that because people feel like they're getting more out of it and they're interacting a lot more.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Whenever we did in person, it was a lot more attentive.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like whenever we were on Zoom, there were quite a few people who didn't have their cameras on or their mics were muted, and it just got sort of monotonous and nobody was really getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
Is that enough feedback, Michelle?
Yes, ma'am.
I have to say, it's super cool having both experienced mentors and mentees who have been through it last year. It just is going to make this year a lot better for everyone. It's easier for us because you guys are the ones who have been through it. So it's already really neat to have you involved with some experience under your belt. Very cool.
So we did want to pick back up real quick on what we were going to talk about next, and that's diversity in biology 160 or diversity in 160, 162, depending on what semester we're looking at. So what did y'all see as some diversity within, just in general, not your specific groups, but just in general for biology this past year or in years past, like maybe whenever you took 160, what were some different types of diversity that you saw in class?
I mean, we were on Zoom the whole second semester, and the first semester was just videos, so we didn't really see any of our classmates.
Okay.
A lot of just letters on the screen.
Okay. What about labs? How were labs set up?
They were also fully online. Okay. Unless you work with friends, you're not going to talk to anyone about that one. Didn't even talk to the professor.
What about in your mentor groups?
Mentor groups, they were, like I said, not very many people showed up to the end of the year ones, and a lot of them didn't even turn on their cameras because it was on Zoom.
So when y'all introduced yourselves at the beginning, where were people from? Because I mean, that's a type of diversity, like where people are from, their type of education from their high school. Did that strike you as interesting where some people came from, what they were doing? Were there different people who were doing not just the pre-med track, but maybe going into a different part of biology or going into teaching?
I guess I can talk a little bit. So like and so like in my class, you know, now I think I really didn't in my class when I was in lecture, I really didn't pay attention. I was one that just like sat in the front and just like sat down the front, put my eyes on the screen, just kind of focused. I never really paid attention. But in the mentor groups though, like one thing I did really notice, and it made me and teacher really think how he taught material and how like it even be more individualistic and like, you know, focusing on one student we had to was there was a huge diversity of where people came from, but also in the sense of biology, different biology like educations. Like, you know, there's some people that obviously came from not, you know, not, it wasn't necessarily an amazing school, it was like just they had a great biology like class. And they knew a lot. I mean, they took AP biology versus taking just regular biology. There's like, we had a huge diversity in like, you know, what people had taken for biology versus just like, you know, some had taken regular honors, some people taking regular honors AP, some just taking regular, but that was a huge diversity. And I mean, I don't think we had out of the 8, I think 3 are from Mississippi, but no single ones from the same place in Mississippi, and everybody else from out of the state, and no person was from the same state. So when it comes to where people came from and education, we had a huge like diversity, at least in what I still remember in my mentor group. Not a lot of diversity in the sense of majors, though, I will say. I had one pharmacy and then everybody else biology. But anyway.
Anybody else?
For me, I even saw diversity within the grade classification. So most of the students are freshmen, but I actually had a sophomore in my mentor group who was retaking the class. So that adds another level of diversity.
So, I mean, speaking of that, there could be freshmen, sophomore, juniors, you know, transfer students who were coming in, students who may have just declared biology as their major. So that's a different type of diversity that we look at too. Not just your traditional freshman student, but you could have an upperclassman in there as well. You could have some students who are taking the class for a second time. So they've already been through for the first time. They may have gone through it during the summer, or they may have gone through it during the actual semester. For what we were just talking about in the room, you know, this year, they're going to be in person. Last year, they were all, which y'all were just saying, all online. So, I mean, that's going to be a big change for a lot of people right off the bat. So how do we work with that kind of diversity? I mean, think of the freshmen or the high school students who are going to be freshmen this year. They've had almost 2 years of online work. Think of y'all. Whenever you were in high school, were you in high school right before the pandemic happened and then you came to college, or were you in high school right as the pandemic was hitting, and then your entire first year with what we were talking about was all online? So we've got to look at all those differences, and what we were talking about earlier with the do's and don'ts of mentoring, you know, making things inclusive, making people feel welcomed, making people feel able to talk in a small group setting. Those are the kind of things that we want to continue to have happen with every aspect of the class. So from the beginning, where it may be 3 or 4 that start, and then at the end where it just may be 1 left, we want to still have that. You can come ask me whatever you need to ask me. It doesn't have to just be about biology. Like if you need to know where the rebel market is, let's go have lunch. Let's go to the union. Let's go somewhere to where you actually have a person that you can ask questions on campus. And if you don't know the answer, just like for us, if we don't know the answer to something, let me look that up and I'll get back to you. Because you have to think these students are coming in as they had in-person orientation. So they know their orientation leader. A lot of them were advised by people in different departments. They don't have their true advisor until this start of the fall semester, because that'll be somebody in our main office. So they can go back to that advisor, but more than likely that person is working with their other students. But you are going to become that next layer for students if they need something. You know, it could be the second week of school and they don't have their book. How important is it to have a book for this class? It is very important, because all the information that's being told to you from lectures relates to the textbook. We were just talking about study skills. All of that kind of stuff goes back to the textbook. So if they ask you, well, why is it important to have a book? Well, you know, from my experience taking this class, I read my book before I went to class. And then I took notes in my book. And then I did this, this, and this. So sharing those kind of experiences with them is going to help them out. And then you may have to have that conversation in a different light with another student, till they all kind of get the same big picture of, okay, this is important, I need to do this. But talking about diversity, you know, you've got to look at, it's not just gender, it's not just ethnicity, it's their backgrounds. Kind of like what Logan was just saying, like, you know, there's some that come from having a great bio program. Then there's some that I know from my high school, I thought it was a great bio program, but I would not have succeeded in biology 160, because our highest level of biology was like biology 2. I was not prepared for that. I was prepared for English, which is what I got a major in, or got a degree in, which I'm not really doing much with, but we'll talk about that different day, different time. Those kind of things are important to ask, you know, do you feel comfortable with this material? And if they say no, how can I help you feel more comfortable with this material? Have you gone to office hours? Most of us faculty, whenever we sit in office hours and students don't come talk to us, we're working on other projects. We have assigned office hours that we put on our syllabus because we want you to come talk to us. So if you can relay that to students again and say, hey, go to office hours. Or if those hours don't fit within your schedule, say you have class during that time, tell them to email the teacher and say, you know, I've got class on Monday and Wednesday at 1 o'clock when you have office hours. Is there another time that we may be able to meet to set up a time to go over this? You know, not the day before the test, because kind of can't do much then. You've got to do it before time. But looking at the diversity in the classroom, you know, you could have students from Mississippi, you could have students from Alabama, students from New York, all across international students that are in one class. So how do we make things inclusive for everybody? Is what we want to look at when it comes to diversity. Questions, comments, thoughts? So think to yourself, how do you define diversity? And then how are you going to use that definition to help you succeed with the diversity with your group or with your mentees? Do we know about how many students they're going to have per person yet? Are we still working on that?
So I think we're going to, like we did in the spring, I think it worked better to have pairs of mentors. So we're going to pair them up. So I'm thinking about 10 students is the max they'd have after looking at the numbers, but I haven't checked the updated roster yet.
Okay.
That's where I am right now.
So speaking of that, we've got a room in this building or on this floor that's directly across from my office that can hold 12 people. we don't put that room out there to people to use because we're saving it for stuff like this or for the impact program that may have smaller groups of students. But if you need a place on campus, send us an email, stop by, let us know. We can get you set up for that room because most of our GAs are not even going to use it. It's going to be students that are working with groups of students. So like you working with a group of students to be able to use that room. There is a TV in that room. There's a whiteboard in that room. It'll hold 12 people. So if you meet every Monday at 2:00, you can meet right in that room. Just let me know when you need it.
What about after hours? I know some people had their mentor meetings after like 5 o'clock, let's say.
Right now, the building on Monday, Wednesday, Friday closes at 5.
Okay.
And on Tuesday, Thursday closes at 6 o'clock, I think, because we've got a classroom in the back. But I mean, again, that's something that we can work out.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I
just
know
need-
a lot of the student schedules just make it hard to have anything but
Right.
after hours meetings.
Right. Yeah, we can work stuff out. We just need to know kind of in advance what you're planning on doing. So like that first week of school, if you poll them and everybody says, you know, this time works best for me, just come on over, shoot us an email, let us know, and we can get you plugged in for that kind of stuff. Yeah. So one of the reasons we switched all to Zoom was a conversation that we were having as we were coming back from our break. We were going to talk about some case studies, but one actually came up as y'all were talking in the room. So what we want to do is we kind of wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk about, you know, not just test taking, but also talk about the learning environment, switching from what y'all know as online back to full in person. So have y'all thought just personally about what you're going to be doing differently in your classes, not just biology, but about anything in general, switching from, you know, last year being primarily online to now going primarily back face to face?
Is there anything anyone's nervous about going back face to face?
I mean, I would say definitely because, I mean, in my case, I really haven't been in any in-person classes, so it's going to be like a whole new freshman year, kind of, I feel like.
And Lindsay, what year are you going to be?
I'll be a sophomore.
Okay. Okay.
So
I think one thing that I am nervous about is like switching classes, because since we didn't have in-person classes last year, well, except for lab for chemistry, I really don't know where half the buildings are.
Yeah.
this is really common and stuff we typically think of as something that happens your first year here. And so one good thing that we could do to deal with both of these issues is have some of the more senior mentors meet up with you. Like, so Logan and Eden are the two here today who were mentors last year. And you guys can certainly exchange contact information. That email I sent last night reminding you about this should have everybody's email address in it, and then you can exchange phone numbers and what have you. But I mean, certainly Logan and Eden, when they're on campus, can show you around some places. I'm volunteering them to do this, but I think that's sort of a natural thing that we would do to help you guys find things, right? I think that it's not something I had anticipated or even really thought through fully for this year, but certainly use those connections you have And I'm going to say that Dr. Huxma and I are probably not the people to ask where every building is on campus because we stay in Shoemaker most of the time, I think. So asking the other mentors, and I will try to, so I've set up that group me, like I said before, so that all the mentors will be in one group, and maybe we can help by having the mentors help the other mentors find some things on campus.
Yeah, I'm 100% down to like give any of the new mentors like kind of like a little campus tour. Like me and Deidre did that for our mentees. So, but like just because like we knew they didn't know anything on campus because of the online environment. But I'm completely down to do that. I'll put my number in that email.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, feel free to text me or email me. I'd be more than happy to show you around.
Good. What other things are concerning about switching from online to in person? I mean, my first thought was you guys most of the new mentors who took classes last semester haven't had an exam that is closed book, really. So that was one thing I was highlighting.
Yeah, that's the one thing that because for me at least, the only class I had that was open book that wasn't like proctored and like it was open book was evolution, but like organic chemistry, Cal 4, like all the other classes were all proctored. But it still wasn't like like on in-person test by any standards. But yeah, it's the one thing that like I'm nervous really more like I am. Of course, I'm nervous a little bit, but I'm also more nervous for the new students coming in who are coming from high schools, but also just like just in general, even sophomores, because like a lot of sophomores too are taking organic chemistry, and like I'll go and say like I didn't have for my class I didn't have open book or open notes, but it was just like I've never taken organic chemistry in person, so like I don't know what if the class would be different, not different. But yeah, no, that I am a little nervous, just like for myself, also just for a lot for the students that haven't taken in-person class yet, too, because like that's like it's hard for me to like understand what it's like because I had freshman year in person, then I had sophomore year not in person. I've had both experiences, not just one experience. So it's hard for me to understand. And
yeah.
So one other thing I thought I would share with you guys that you may not realize is that there will be 695-ish students in BISC 160-ish. The sections won't go over, so there are 4 sections of the course. And there should be about 200 in each. So your mentees will have exposure to that many students at once. And that's pretty overwhelming. And it's a pretty, it can be very distracting to see that many people in a single space together, especially for those mentees who are coming from smaller high schools. So I'm offering to let you guys come to any of the classrooms to see what they look like and see what it's like to sit in a room with that many people. Just for your own, because some of you have not seen this before. I'm sure, I don't know if Logan or Eden remembers their first day of class, but there are a lot of people.
yeah, I remember my first day, I was just like, I was I sat on the third row my first day, just I thought, oh yeah, maybe I could get to know some people. But I know eventually, like, because people like as sit more towards the back, people do, at least in my experience, and people would talk and people would like not for me it'd be a strategy to try and listen to like Samula or Jackson, but also try to listen to people talking behind me as well. So I know one thing that I found that was very helpful is like, as you got more towards the front, less and less people talked and more focused on what was going on the screen. So I started, and I don't know if that was because they like wanted to focus or it was because they were afraid like the teacher would yell at us. I don't know I don't know which one it was, but I transitioned to the front like probably like second weekend just because like I know the back noise, like it wasn't loud, but it's that still like tiny little noise was like kind of distracting.
Yeah, I was super overwhelmed my first class. I remember throughout the school year, I would always get really distracted looking at other people's computer screens if they took notes on their computers. So I think that might be something that the freshmen will also have to adjust to. It's really easy to get distracted by other people typing and maybe going on other websites besides taking notes.
I usually try to make sure that doesn't get too distracting for people. And one of our former mentors, Fisher, likes to remind me every time he sees me that I called him out for doing just those things in lecture hall. And he apologized for 4 years for doing that. And so we do recognize those issues. And but this is something that we will have to talk about, some of the ways to avoid those distractions, right? So what are things you did? So Logan just said he moved forward. Eden, how did you get yourself to stay focused with those other distractions? How did you learn how to do that?
I also switched my spot and ended up moving closer to the front where there were less people.
Okay.
Yes, I think
That was why I didn't even catch that.
and but like if I remember correctly, it was like majority of people stacked in the middle, and they had like scatters in the back and scatters in the front. At least if I remember correct, I might be completely wrong on that because it's been 2 years, but
Yeah, so one thing y'all might want to tell your mentees is sit as close to the front as possible. I mean, that should be the rule for every class, no matter if it's biology, history, writing, sociology, whatever, especially in a big lecture hall, you're less distracted the more closer you sit to the front. And if you're front row, that's the only thing that you have to focus on is what's in front of you. I mean, take notes on your computer if you want to. I prefer old, pen to paper, but if you want to do your computer and you're sitting right there taking notes, you don't have time to play on Facebook, Instagram, Netflix, shopping, whatever the case may be, because you're literally right there in the front. So if you can tell them, I mean, I tell my freshmen whenever I talk to them for EDHE 105, sit as close to the front, if not on the front row, as possible. Trust me, you will get so much more out of lecture because you're engaged and you're not focusing on what the other people are trying to tell you or what the other people are trying to do to get you distracted and throw you off your game. You're here to make the best grade in this class as possible so you can move on to the next class and the next class and the next class. So sitting up front, perfect way to do it. And we as instructors know where people sit. I mean, the ones who sit up front, the ones who sit in the back, those kind of things, who's actually literally paying attention to us and who's over here in La La Land. So we pick up on those kind of cues every time. But does anybody have any questions about that or about what you're gonna need to do? What I would do is I would make a list of things. I wish I would have known this my freshman year. Make a list and then say, okay, I was in your shoes last year. Here's what I wish I would have known. I do that all the time. I went to school here. I know a lot has changed since I went to school here, but as a freshman, I remember sitting in the same classrooms as these other freshmen. I'm teaching in some of the same classrooms I actually had class in, which is kind of weird because I'm now on the front and they're all having to pay attention to me. But as a freshman, I wish I would have known 1, 2, 3. And then, okay, now what do you have questions about? How can I help you? I don't know where my next class is. Okay, well, you're going to chemistry, so you want to go out the building and right there. Or I'm going to the music hall, or I'm going to Guyton, you know, within 10 minutes. And I'm like, you better got your running shoes on. You're gonna be going across campus. Those kind of things, just to help them out as much as you can. But then, you know, build in time for yourself. That's important too. So one of the last things I wanted to do, especially with those note cards, if you don't have it with you, it's fine. But on a piece of paper or just thinking of something, I want you to come up with one word that you want to use throughout the semester. How do you want your mentees to see you, view you, respond to you in one word? So when I was doing this, I'm teaching EDHE 305 this year, and my word that I came up with was helpful. I want a student, if they ever have any questions, to know they can come talk to me, be it before class, be it after class, in my office hours, via email, whatever the case may be. So on my note card, I wrote helpful. I want a student to know that I'm there to help them. So pick a word, any word, something that you want, something that you care about. And so like we were asked, what do we want out of this as an instructor? For you, what do you want out of this as a mentor? And then when you're struggling throughout the semester with something, stop and look at your words. So like my goal is I'm going to tape this on my wall over my phone. So whenever anybody calls me, no matter if I'm having a good day or a bad day, I know I need to be helpful. I can look at it before I go to class. So the last thing I see when I grab my book bag to go teach is I want to be helpful to these students. That's my word for the semester, is helpful. Anybody want to share their word?
I can share my word.
Okay.
So I said encouragement.
Yeah.
For my word, and the reason why I said that was because I know like freshman year, I was like, of course I had friends like that, but you know, like studying and going through the whole like recovery phase after like a bad test like that was kind of all done. Like, you know, having encouragement was always super, super helpful for me to kind of recover and get back into things and get it organized and stay on top of things as well. And so, and I know, so the one word that was encouraged is because I know these freshmen, but also just in general, they are going to have times they're going to need encouragement to stay on top and to stay focused and stay on top. This is just to stay with the class and be part of the class.
Yep. Yeah. So what you can do is, with that word or with all your words, put it in your wallet, put it in if you have one of those flaps on the back of your phone where you put your cards and stuff, slide a piece of paper in there. Whenever you're pulling out your Ole Miss ID, you can see that word to where it helps you remember, this is what I want to do. And then who was fixing to say something? Sorry.
Sorry, I was also going to share my word. So
Yeah.
I chose the word friend because I want my mentees to think of me as a friend in addition to a mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else?
I put available because I want them to think of me as like there for whatever they need, whether it be advice, helping them out with something, tutoring, even if they need any of that here and there, like just available for what they need.
Yeah. Yep.
I wrote appreciated.
Okay.
Because I want to, whenever this whole year is said and done with, I want whatever I will do or what I've done to have made a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah. Okay. Those are all great words. And they're words that you can look back at throughout this semester that can help you with your classes, that can help you with your mentees, that can help you with everything that you're going through. Just think of that word, keep it in the back of your mind. This is what I want to have for the whole semester. So one of our other colleagues in the Center for Student Success, instead of doing resolutions every year, we pretty much break all of our resolutions every year. She comes up with one word that she wants to live by for the whole year. So that was her basically charge to us as instructors for going back into the classroom and teaching these freshmen and transfer students come up with a word. So we wanted to share that with y'all to where you can come up with something and just have it be what you think of anytime you need it throughout the entire year. Okay. Does anybody have any other comments or questions? I'll make sure that we send over the PDFs of the study skills where y'all can share those with students too. And if you notice that a student is struggling with studying or struggling with time management, you can refer them to us. That's part of our job here on campus, is to work with students to go over time management, organization, study skills. I'll send you a link to our website that has our YouTube videos. So, you can send those out to students. Some of them are short on the different study skills. You can show those during a mentor session. If everybody's saying, I don't know how to read the textbook, here's a short video you can watch on SQ4R. Let's do one together. Let's do a concept map together. Let's do note cards, whatever the case may be, those kind of things. But if it's still not clicking and students are saying they need help with stuff, send them over to us. We'll help them out with whatever we can.
I was wondering if y'all could send out a copy of the syllabus when it's ready.
Yes, I'll be happy to do that when it's ready. I'm going to put you guys on, there's a biology mentor group on Blackboard. So on the main homepage of Blackboard, when I add you, it'll show up under your groups and under your organizations, and I'll make sure the syllabus is in there, but typically I also add you right to the Blackboard page for 160. So you'll have access to any assignment they get, the syllabus and stuff like that. So you should have that as well. It's coming. It's just got to get the 3 instructors together to finish off a few things.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Rebecca, did you have anything you wanted to add real quick?
Well, I just think that, think about the amazing impact you guys are making on your students' lives and how resilient you all are for not only managing college in the midst of this pandemic and other life things that could be happening, but also being willing to help support your peers. I think that's incredible. So whatever we can do to support you, I promise we've heard everything under the sun. There's no such thing as a silly question. If there's anything that you need, we're more than happy to support you as students and then answer any questions, of course, you have as students. And also if you're concerned about other students, we're happy to get folks connected to resources like the Counseling Center, UMatter office, if there's other things going on outside of school, but anything you need, we want to support you for sure.
Yep. All right. Anything else? All right, well, just know that if you want to use our space, come on over, let us know. We'll get you set up with some stuff. If your students need help with stuff, we're here to help them with that. And then, anytime y'all have questions throughout the semester about things, y'all can reach out to us and let us help you out any way that we can do that too. Okay. We'll make sure this recording gets done, and then I'll send over some emails with some stuff, and we should be good to go for the start of the semester.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all so much.
Good
Y'all
to
have a good
see
one.
ya.
Thank you.
Have a
Good to
good
see you all.
one.
Thank
All right.
you.
See you soon.
Bye.